Yo, what is up, guys? It's the Nightwing at Way of Life Esports coming at you guys with another League of Legends video here today. Now, as you guys already know from the title of this video, Bjergsen has retired and he will be remembered as one of the NA LCS's greatest players of all time. I mean, his accolades are literally through the roof. Now, the only dark spot on his career is never really succeeding at Worlds, but on the Worlds point, he has been on one of the only TSM rosters to get out of group stage, which was in the 2014 World Championship. So, that is something there. And they did take a game off the eventual winners of that event, which was Samsung White. IEMs don't count. I'm sorry if you're a TSM fan, they don't count. You won because of luck, because Kuro decided to troll in one of the games against Team World Elite. Nevertheless, I personally think that Bjergsen will be a player that a lot of the other newer up-and-coming players look up to. He's going to be sort of a Michael Jordan of the NA LCS moving forward. I personally think that everything he's done will cement the legacy of whether you're an import or an up-and-coming player. You can achieve a lot of great success, but it depends on if you're willing to put yourself through the hardships. Now, as you guys already know, TSM just made historical records by going 0-6 as a Pool 1 seed for North America, thus meaning they're the first Pool 1 seed to go 0-6. I personally think he did retire because he did go 0-6 at Worlds. I mean, even before the recent tweet he put out today about retiring, I mean, the other tweet before that was embarrassing, So I personally think he retired because of that, and among other reasons. He has been playing for TSM since 2014 spring. So you factor that's 6 years, not counting in MSIs he's went to, constant world championships, grinded solo queue, playing a bunch of splits, different formats, a lot of ups and downs. And what do you think, honestly?
What do I think about this whole thing? I mean, I
Do you think
that
he retired because he went 0-6?
I don't think that's deniable. I mean, I don't think anybody questions that. I think without a doubt that's what happened. I don't think I've seen anybody with different takes on that. I think the big situation was there was a very disappointing thing at Worlds. He was supposed to be the star player, and they didn't show up when he was the star player. I mean, I think the big kind of question I have right now. Again, there's a lot of problems I have with getting rid of a star player. Obviously, usually the whole ideology is you want to build a star, like a kind of a contending team around him. I think the only time they've actually successfully built a team, which I think was kind of comparable to his strength, was 2016 TSM. I think that was the best iteration of TSM we've ever seen. And after that, I think that every other version of it was kind of Bjergsen reverting back to him being his own player, and everybody else kind of trying to funnel resources into him. He's the
Like, he was the supported player?
No, he was never supportive. I'm just saying, like, they kind of just had to make him the all-star carry while they kind of just tried not to lose around the map, and then eventually he could 1v9, but it just never works on international stages. Like, the reason that TSM specifically didn't work with this iteration of Bjergsen is because of the fact that, again, this type of situation revolves around Bjergsen being he's overbearing at this point. I think he's the shot caller of this team, tries to be the leader and all this stuff, and it essentially leads into bad kind of takes on what I think the meta are, because he tries to use his own version of what the meta is to try and get the team to go in that direction. If we look at their game against Fnatic, I mean, they 100% played the way they did in NALCS. Again, it's mechanical mistakes and all that stuff, but for the way they approached the game was the same. Obviously, they didn't play up to standard. Essentially, they'd go into they get a lead early game, and then they try and translate that lead into a dragon or something, and then Fnatic punished that by taking 3 towers. You can't always, essentially what you need to do is set up the waves before, but they never do that. They just essentially play. They get the objective part of it sometimes. Not usually, actually. But they never get the overlying kind of all these macro decisions that lead up to this. They don't push waves on the side lanes beforehand, so the enemy team is able to get onto that and take objectives off that and get a lot of gold off that. They never set up vision beforehand. They always show up late to dragons. Every single dragon, pretty much the entirety of the World Championships, they showed up at the very 20 seconds before it spawned each time. I mean, 20 seconds, after 20 seconds before it spawns. You can't show up when dragon spawns. You should be, at the very least, if you're 20 seconds early to a dragon, you're usually late as a team, if that's when you're showing up. The only one that doesn't have to show up is probably top lane, or maybe mid lane if he's in a 1-3-1 comp. But it's just how TSM worked. They're always late to these objectives. They always tried to play the game the way that they saw success in NA. And again, the reason that TSM didn't succeed more so as the other two teams did is because when they saw the success that they saw in NA hadn't translated, like Team Liquid essentially could play passive and reactionary, and when the enemy team made a mistake, even when they were behind, they were able to take advantage of that. But teams usually don't make mistakes to that extent inside of the international stage. Team Liquid adapted to it. FlyQuest also did. TSM did not, because their basis of like their versatility relied on Bjergsen being able to do other things, and then the rest of the team kind of playing as his backup dancers. That's essentially, he was the Mariah Carey to, or the Beyonce Love on Top. They are all his backup dancers, and he was in the middle singing. Like, I despise what this team actually approached the game like. Supportive ADCs, I get it. Maybe Doublelift's not the best at these, but like, again, you could have played more 1-3-1 comps. You could have played all these other comps, and they never ended up doing it because, again, their whole ideology revolved around what can Bjergsen do for us and how can we support that, instead of just a team play like the rest of the teams at Worlds.
For me, we were just talking about this on the latest C9FanCast episode, where we were actually talking about TSM potentially making a mid lane change. Because let's be honest here, like, TSM has only ever had two mid laners, Reginald and Bjergsen. So at a certain point, I understand why you would keep him. He's a star player. You want to build rosters around him. He's very successful. He has one of the most storied careers next to like Sneaky and Doublelift and Xmithy. He goes along the lines with all those other great names for the North American LCS. But at a certain point, you never know if the grass is greener on the other side. And I have another situation to point that to. So how about Sneaky for Cloud9? So when Cloud9 officially kicked Sneaky, when everyone, like Cloud9 got Sven, people were like, well, I don't really think he can measure up to the standards Sneaky set for Cloud9. And lo and behold, Sven got C9 the title back in the LCS 2020 spring split. So what I'm saying is, like, people are very, very unwilling of change because the future's scary. Like, I understand. Like, I do think they had conversations with Bjergsen about splitting time with someone finally after what happened. I could just not believe them going 0-6, him underperforming, and them being like, no, you are undoubtedly our starter. I think they had conversations about trying to maybe have him split time with somebody else. And he had been playing for so long, he probably thought to himself, you know what, I probably don't want to split time. I'll just go into the coaching role.
I don't know if that's what I think happened. I think the big thing, first of all, I want to point out that success does usually come with the star player. Usually, the reason that all these other sports essentially don't trade away their star players and consistently keep them for 10 to 12 years is because the way you build teams, if you get a star player, you usually don't get another chance to get one of those. And I think that's the same with NA. If you get a star player, you're most likely not going to get a chance of getting another one. And I honestly think that he's one of the best ones, if not the best mid laner, depending on what point in time we're going to be looking at. Like, the big problem is I think the big problem is that they've never successfully built a team around him. Again, 2016 TSM is the best one I could think of, and we had a massive amount of underperformances in the bot lane. I mean, we still had a weak, like, Hanser was playing okay, they had a weak jungler, like, all around, I think they didn't have a good grasp of that meta, but they essentially built a team that was a lot more cohesive and really good at the mid-game transition, usually. But again, a big problem I have with TSM now is the fact that they built a team of 2 star players, and I would say tried to get a third one. He's resource hungry, but he's playing terrible. They just never built a successful team around him. I don't know if I agree with this transition. I have to see if it actually pans out. But maybe even if they get a worse player, they identify the problems that they have because they don't have that voice inside of the team anymore. They don't have that overbearing Bjergsen, I need to do this and you guys have to follow up. Maybe that's what's happening. I don't know. But I really do hope it is a good trend for them.
I think this is going to be like Team Liquid when they swapped out Doublelift for Tactical. I think this is going to be like...
I mean, the big thing with those ones is those 2 players were trash. Like, Sneaky and Doublelift were both trash, and that's why they got replaced.
But at a certain point, they have been playing for their orgs for so long. Yeah, I've never really seen the org
similarities. But the reason they got replaced... But the reason they got replaced is because they were worse than their counterpart. They were just bad.
And look at this. And look at what just happened. Bjergsen just had an underperformance at the World Championship, and then Reginald. I imagine this is how I'm thinking it personally. I think that they had conversations of splitting time with a new person they had probably been talking to about getting, and he just probably didn't want to do that. Like, I don't see Bjergsen as the player after meeting him and talking to him. I don't really think he's the player that would want to split time with someone. I think he understands that instead of splitting time with someone, he could just put his knowledge into coaching, and he can be much more effective about that. But before we move on, Bjergsen's accomplishments for all you guys that are just watching him potentially this year, Bjergsen has played 8 seasons, 6-time LCS champion, 4-time MVP, 5 world appearances, IEM World Championship that doesn't count, but it's on his record, 4-time All-Star participant. He's got lists of accolades. So looking at this right now, I think that this is a good thing for TSM. I think that this is going to give them something that a lot of the fans kind of secretly had wanted. Because like you got to factor in, you can never see what you're gonna you can never really see what you're going to potentially reach if you don't try anything new out. So, but the problem with that goes to another thing. It goes into the problem of Bjergsen being on the coaching staff. Does that mean TSM is still going to see the game the same way? Because if he's the head coach, won't that just mean that they'll just, honestly, just be playing the game the same way? Because if he's the head coach, whatever strategy he implements is going to be there because it's Bjergsen. He had the long story career. He has the success. Why are we not listening to him?
I mean, I do want to point out. I want to point out
the rumor of the roster they might have.
I don't care about. There's massive amounts of rosters. I mean, we could speak on a lot of things, but
one of them is weird, but we could entertain it later on.
I'm just saying, I don't know if I 100% agree with all these things. I mean, I'm not going to say this is a good trade-off until I see. I think that just getting rid of people, especially your best player, when you're not finding success is not the best idea. I mean, I always think you should replace the weakest points of a team. I just think that at this point in time, Bjergsen chose to just step down. I honestly would not see any logical reason why TSM specifically would go out of the way to do it. All around, I think that they need... The big thing about this is they need an in-game shot caller. They never found it with Bjergsen, and maybe they feel like they need it in mid lane. I think, but again, if you have a shot caller, but you have a person who doesn't listen to that shot caller, maybe that's another reason why they got rid of Bjergsen or why he chose to step down. Because, again, a team can't succeed, no matter how good he is, if a player is not choosing to follow shot calling. But if that's not the case of Bjergsen, if that's not what is happening, I don't think it's a good choice. I mean, I think Bjergsen is still by far and away one of the best mid laners in the NA scene. Like, you're not going to find somebody that good. I mean, I think that it all comes down to the fact that they need a shot caller.
Well, now you have Jensen and Power of Evil, and with Bjergsen retiring, that makes the offseason a lot more interesting because Jensen's contract is up at Team Liquid, Power of Evil's contract is up at FlyQuest. That means by default, with Bjergsen retiring, Jensen and Power of Evil are now the best mids in the LCS. So that means if you're TSM, I mean...
We'll see. I mean, we still got Jizuke.
I want to give credit. Jizuke is still actually pretty good.
Jizuke, when he's on, is good.
Ran it down for half a split and then did really well the rest of the split. Yeah. I don't know how to really gauge him sometimes.
He's just inconsistent. He's essentially like I would compare him to Mickey, but like more consistently good than that. When I think my big thing about this is who is actually going to replace him. There's no sustainable.
C9 are talking about maybe starting Palafox, so Niski could be on TSM.
Niski again, I actually thought about that. I think Niski again has a good ideology because it.
Bjergsen's playstyle. Niski does play it.
Niski cannot play it. I mean, I think what Niski can do is the exact opposite, is what he can play around his team. No, he could play around his team a lot more. I don't know about shot calling, but he can play around his team a lot more, and they're already an early aggressive team, which means they can snowball that. Maybe this transitions their mid game a little better because now they have an even more sustainable lead and they have a player that's willing to play around the map with them. I think Niski, again, if we look at the statistics, I think he has one of the lowest proximities to his lane specifically out of everybody. His kill participation is the highest out of all the mid laners.
He primarily plays around his jungler and what his jungler wants to do.
They will lose a lot of mechanical skill by putting Niski in, but they will gain a lot more map presence, which is something I agree with. And I don't know if Spick is the jungler I want him to be having map presence with, but I mean, again, there's not much you can complain about too much.
Hey, you made Blabber look good, so anything's possible.
Blabber's definitely better than Spick, though. But all around, I want to say that I do think that Niski would be a solid choice. I think, again, you won't have a world's contending team, but, I mean, you could win the LCS.
They want to win it. They want to win the LCS. That's their goal. They want to win LCS. So Niski proved this year he can win LCS. So.
I think I think all goals ultimately should be to try and win worlds. I always think that should be the case. You should not shoot for barely winning LCS.
I think the LCS should focus on getting a team out of groups consistently, then try making top 8 consistently. Try making top 4,
your goal should always be finals. You should never shoot to You should be happy and be like, wow, this was good. This was a good showing, but you should always shoot to win. I don't think anybody who doesn't shoot
so high, you're always gonna fail at them.
Well, no. Who cares if you fail? You should never settle just because you want things. Like again, a winner's mentality is always shooting for the highest highs. If you go into a mindset of a game thinking that you're the underdog and gonna lose, you're always gonna lose that game. That's just how competitive environments work. Like, I think a big problem I have right now is that I don't see a logical replacement for him unless they can get Jensen or Power of Evil, and even then, they really kind of had to transition their entire playstyle. Which it might be good.
Power of Evil, Niski.
Neither one of these teams are going to want to give them up.
Those are the only three that I could see happening. Other than that, you have to go with other players. Let me look them up right now. They would never go with DeMonte. They're not going with DeMonte. Or you play Evolved from their academy scene. You could do that.
No.
I mean, like, give the new guy a chance.
It's trash.
Time we can give some NA
he didn't have good enough stats in the academy. I would never put him in.
Good enough stats. You know how stats are so inflated in this game?
It doesn't matter. If you can't do well against Keith McBrief and all the rest of the academy players, you shouldn't be in the LCS. It's just they should import somebody. That's the only thing. I don't agree with the idea. There's no good enough native mid laners to keep in the LCS that I think.
DeMonte or Pobelter.
Neither one of them are good. They're good enough for NA. But they're not good enough to compete.
But you got to factor in I'm pretty sure some of these teams are trying to save on their budget. So if
TSM is not. TSM is not. Yeah. TSM is trying to win, and they don't win with Bjergsen and Pobelters. I mean, not Bjergsen, DeMonte and Pobelters. They win.
Here's what I'll say. This is a shot right now to try out a new mid laner. But this is the thing, though. They might not win Spring, and by their own admission, and one of the players on their roster, if Spring doesn't matter, then I don't really see the problem.
Spring doesn't matter. I agree. I mean, I think
you can try. Then if that's the logic, you can try out someone new because it doesn't matter then.
Yeah, but try out somebody who's worth your time.
They could go 6-6. Not 6-6. Fuck it. I'm sorry. 9-9 because that's the 18. If Spring doesn't matter, then try someone new. Try somebody new, but just throwing in golden glue because glue. I'm just saying this is like no, they would never go for gold.
I'm just saying all around, don't just throw in somebody that's not worth your time. Try somebody really good and see if they work out with your team. Go try out and see if you can grab like some sort of Korean mid laner, and if that works out, solid. If it doesn't, unfortunate.
He doesn't want people that. From Korea or China.
You know what? Reginald also doesn't know what to do at this point, so I don't agree with his. I don't agree that he should be the leading voice in this because he's obviously brought in some trash players. His reasonings have been bad. He's brought in all these players. Lustboy is one of the better supports they had for a long time, and he didn't speak English for a long time. He was Korean. Like, it's bad reasoning. A lot of players that learn English later on, like Hooney and all that stuff, worked out really well.
Froggen's on Dignitas. I think Froggen would work well with TSM. Obviously,
it would slow down the pace of their early game even more.
Similar to Bjergsen, Froggen likes to be the man of the
show.
They
don't want another Bjergsen. That's the whole point. It's not
another Bjergsen.
It's not talent that they're missing. It's just map movements. It's just mid-game transitions into objectives. It's all these things, and Froggen doesn't do that. He scales into late game on GP or Anivia, and then just exists, and he team fights, and that doesn't work anymore. Bjergsen is a lot more proactive than him in the early game, and he still is kind of lackluster in that aspect. I mean,
so looking at how things could go, I'm just spitballing ideas for everyone who's watching. If they want to save on their budget, which we know they are not budgetless, they literally built a $50 million facility. They could try their academy mid laner. If they claim Spring doesn't matter, try him out. See how he can perform on stage and see what he can do if you give him resources. I'm saying not giving him a shot is horrible because
it's not. He had his trash and he had his chance in academy.
What is his academy record?
I'll show you right now.
I'll show you. Won academy a few times.
It's not about winning academy. It's about being good in academy.
I'm just saying though, like winning academy, he's won it. So that's something.
It's not. I mean, you have to literally be good. You have to be good inside of it. LCS. NA LCS Academy. Let's go to mid laners. I'll tell you the kill participation. He is... Who's their mid laner again?
Evolved.
He is third to last in everything. I thought so. This guy is
Well, that's
terrible.
what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not counting stats for that stuff because stats are so inflated in this game, and like, it doesn't
I
really show the whole
think
picture of the
if
game.
you have bad kill participation as a mid laner, you shouldn't be on a like. If we're gonna actually pull somebody from academy, I would prefer Froggen. Like if we're actually gonna go down that path, like that.
I'm just saying, like,
He's
statistics don't show the whole scope of
I
what's
can
going
I
on.
can show you points at the games that I've watched where I think he's been atrocious, but I'm not going to do that. I think that he has. I mean, just based off the fact that he's struggling against pretty much all of these mid laners, I think that it's not worth our time to try and test him out. I mean, I think that kill participation is one of the most important aspects of a mid laner, and he's kind of struggling on that. I mean, he has that. Let's look at
So
this.
in spring they got fourth, and then in summer they got second.
I don't
So
care
there's
about.
no difference there. And they lost to Cloud9 3-1 in the finals, and they didn't make it past the first round of the quarterfinals back in spring. So there's a noticeable change here. I think that if you want to take him, you could try it. Give him a few games. What's the worst going to happen in spring? Give him a few games. Just give him a few games. See if it works out. Play
No,
around.
if you don't succeed in academy, I'm not trying you out. That was what
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. That's me.
That's
I'm just
because
saying,
you're not a good coach.
give a few games to him. Play around.
Okay,
him.
let's think about this. In the academy, in the G League, on every NBA team, if you do bad in the NBA scene, do they pull you up to the NBA scene?
Give me the one caveat for that. You know
There's-
what the one caveat for that is?
What?
Because first of all, this is NA Academy, and no one even cares for it, so it shouldn't matter in general.
Well,
No
I'm
one
just
cares
telling you.
about the Academy.
Just think about
People
this right
care
now.
about
In
people care
every
about the
single
secondary basketball
region of every single game, they never, if you can't succeed in the lower brackets of AAA and baseball and all these things, if you do bad in them, they don't pull you up. And there's a big reason for this. Is the testing grounds. This is how you practice them. If you don't succeed in that, no, you don't understand. Because you think somehow NA LCS is somehow different in that aspect. When in reality, it's identical. The reason that Academy scene even exists is to try out these players. If they don't succeed here, you bring up somebody else into the Academy scene. They should be out of the Academy scene, and they should get replaced by somebody better. Like, I would like to see some more. Like, again, I'll look at Evolved again. I saw like 2 games out of him, and then I see his stats and kill participation is one of the lowest ones in the league.
What I'm saying has a flaw in your argument is nobody cares about NA Academy.
What is that? How is that a flaw in my argument?
Because if no one cares about Academy, then anything they do shouldn't matter.
What?
That's what I'm saying.
Why does it not matter if they do poorly
people
against
care.
Academy players?
People care about those secondary basketball leagues in order to pull talent from. Because
They
you have a
don't.
massive
No one
amount of
watches
talent.
them. Like
Some do. Some do.
there's more.
Scouts do.
Yeah, they do. I mean, the scouts watch this too. Like all around, I think that this. I mean, honestly, if you don't succeed in the NA Academy scene, I think you either continually develop them if you see potential in them, or you trade them out for somebody else that you see in the solo queue scene and try and train them to be good in
Would
this.
you replace Bjergsen with if you can't? If TL keep Jensen,
I would import somebody. NA born mid laners just
import Nuke Duck then.
no. Nuke Duck is trash.
No, don't import that guy.
I think an import would be the best idea. I think that consistently trying to try, like just practicing people, you're wasting more time if you see they don't have potential because now you do. They think about it. Is perfect.
Doesn't matter. Play a few games around him.
Okay, I'll point out right now. The reason that I agree with it.
On-stage games matter more than anything in Academy.
Okay, so I do want to point out. So the reason that you don't do this is because if you want to develop a team, you have to have a long period of time, and you want to put that time into somebody that has potential to be able to be good. If you look at this player, he doesn't succeed on the academy scene. There's 100% no reason you should waste probably an entire split with him. When in reality, the next split, if you try somebody new, now they are not going to look good because they haven't had the potential to practice with this team. More so is the reality. The other mid laners have been playing with their team the entire time, so he can never look good in comparison unless they somehow gel together perfectly. You've wasted now an entire year of time. Wasted a good mid laner because he couldn't put himself together. Now he has a bad mentality with the team. Like all around, this just completely destroys.
I have a counterpoint to that.
Put it out.
Caps was very unknown to anybody.
Caps was extremely hyped up. What?
We didn't know this. We didn't know this.
I didn't know him.
But we knew he was hyped up, but we didn't know how good he was. Fnatic pulled him out of Turkey and put him on Fnatic, and they could have went with that too. Why are you trying out this?
I don't understand. You saw potential in him. That's completely different. He was good where he was at.
Before that, I saw nothing but highlights. That's all I saw.
I'm just saying the statistics were on his side. He was the best player in his position. Like all around these entire situations, you're trying to use somebody who is essentially one of the lowest kill participations in the entire league and trying to compare him. Like again, maybe we try out Evolved and somehow he magically turns, but if he doesn't, you waste an entire year with that because now we don't have a mid laner in the second season.
I'll only give him a few games in the first season, the first split. because since it doesn't matter.
You think that you can pull somebody if you waste the beginning of the season? You don't have a chance to get all the. You have to grab these people at the beginning of the season, or they're taken.
I'm not saying waste it. What I'm saying is give him a few games in spring.
Okay, so what happens now if you waste him and give him these first few games in spring? All the mid laners that have talent are taken. They're gone. Everybody's picked them up at the beginning. You have to grab them at the beginning, or they're gone. If you try and say we're going to use a few games on a vault, that mid laner that was in Korea that has talent is gone now. Like we could talk about all this.
You know, TSM is not going to pick anybody from Korea.
I don't care. They should do something. Maybe Europe. Europe has talent too. NA does. I've not seen anything.
European players that want to come over to North America.
All of them do. All of them do. We offer 7. I've never heard that.
Most of them said they don't want to come for money.
I don't care if most of them said that. That was like 2 people. There was 2 people that said. 1 person. It was like 1 person that said it. Like all around, money will win all of them over, and that's just a fact. We have the money. I don't see why we wouldn't use it. Like we could try and develop the scene all we want, but if they don't look in the academy scene, if they can't develop the players, there's absolutely no reason you should waste an entire year on somebody, or even the first few games, because again, now all these players are gone at this point in time. Like I think we could, I haven't seen too many situations where they've been able to pull somebody out randomly. That wasn't at least in the academy scene, just being able to like, this guy doesn't work out, so we're gonna get Faker instead. Like you have to grab somebody at the beginning of the year. You have to try them out at the beginning of the season. If it doesn't work at the beginning, you build them up, and then eventually it gets good. Like Evolved, does he have the potential? I'll watch some more games. It didn't look like he did from the few games I watched, but maybe I'm incorrect. Maybe the most important stat that I've seen in kill participation is negligible. He's 10%, 11% belower than the top player.
Do you take a chance on Evolved, who's already there, or do you take a shot at potentially getting another mid laner?
You still have Evolved regardless.
But this is the thing with some of the European players. Some of the best ones are not going to come over here, obviously, because they don't see NA as successful, and you won't be getting far at Worlds.
If you want to be a mature person, you look for money, and that's just the reality of it. Success only gets you that instantaneous gratification. Maybe you're happier in the moment, but if you get a seven-digit paycheck, you're going to be set for life. And that's something that all these people who are grown adults will actually look at. I mean, I don't care what the EU scene says. It's the smartest idea to go for the more well-paying job. And if honestly you could spare it, maybe you're making like 500,000, and it doesn't really matter to you if that extra 500,000. I'm just saying, you make so much more money. We have the money to be able to steal most everybody from the EU scene. They have to be more intelligent about it. I mean, you can say we can try and develop the scene, but again, with our low player base, we're just gonna be we've pulled people. We have Licorice, we have all these players. We have Linksadity, who I think is good. We have what's his name from the top lane in Immortals. I think all these players have been developed. We have Vulcan, all these good NA talented players, and it's just not gonna work just because we wanted to work. We see that these players succeed in the academy since we've drafted them up. This has been successful. The academy scene has been successful. It's brought up good players. But if we just start bringing up everybody because we want them in, it's not going to work anymore. You're not speaking.
Oh, the LPL, what the heck? It's saying.
No, you are.
If you look at how the LPL has performed, I mean, they showed that you can use imports if your domestic talent is good too. Because obviously, if you don't know, Shy and Rookie on IG are the imports, and on FPX, Gimgun, Doinby, and Khan are the imports, obviously. So, you can have your cake and eat it too. I'm just saying that if you never develop certain players on certain teams, then you're never gonna be able to use those import slots.
So, what is the use of academy scene if not to develop players? Tell me.
That's what it was meant to be doing.
It is literally doing that.
Only started doing that recently. This is the first split where you've seen a lot of the players.
We had Vulcan last year. 2 years ago. That's not just one. We had Licorice. We had Smoothie when he was good.
No, Licorice didn't come from the academy scene. He came from E United before it all got changed. Remember?
That's okay. Fair enough. Not technicality in terms of that. He did actually go into the academy scene right after it got developed. But at the same,
was on TDK and been bouncing around from team to team.
That was I'm talking about the challenger scene. It was literally the challenger scene before. Now it's the academy scene. I think the technicality is that was used as the same function as this. If you're just saying because it's not named academy scene, it's not the same function, I don't agree with that. I mean, it's all.
Not really. The challenger scene is disbanded. It's not
why is it not the same though in terms of developing talent?
Because actually in the challenger scene, the reason why people didn't pick new players out is because they wanted to secure their investment into the league.
Yes.
Now you can tell the team owners have been specifically not taking as many risks.
I don't think you've really 100% targeted. What I'm saying is, how did these players who just came into the scene not get developed inside of the challenger scene?
Only players that I can remember.
I could bring up a pretty large amount of them. And I think that there's been that. There's been Smoothie. There's been Johnson. There's Licorice. If you want to count him as a challenger, I'll disregard that. Fair enough.
We've had Licorice and Smoothie were in the league before Academy was ever a thing, though. That's my thing.
Yeah, but he came through the challenger scene. Are we just completely saying that's not a thing? I mean, we still brought up Vulcan. We still brought up Johnson. We still brought up Insanity. We still brought up what's his name, the top laner from that team. We still can bring up a few other ones. Demonte was pretty solid. We can bring up Viper, who looked good for one split and then looked bad the rest of them. Like, all of these players did get developed, and I think saying the Academy scene isn't doing that is idiotic. I mean, we've definitely brought up a solid over 10 players at this point in time. Some of them didn't work out. When they look good in the Academy scene, they always get brought up, and that's a fact. Every single one. Kumo looked good in it. Like,
TSM, what do you do for TSM moving forward?
Because I just think that bringing up...
I imagine they want a whole new revamp.
I agree, but I think that bringing up a player that is, I mean, whatever. Maybe Evolved is better than on paper, and I'm missing out a few games. I'll watch more games on him.
I'm not saying he's like the best.
He has to be the best.
Give him some tryout games against the competitive teams before the split starts.
If he doesn't, tell me what is the point of bringing something like if you see me and I go 0-15 inside of the Academy scene, but you have a terrible support, would you still bring me up?
It depends on.
There shouldn't be no depends. I think if I
know that some players perform better on the stage than they do in the scrim.
That's such a very bad take on it. You can see potential based off of how they play, and even if they play better on the stage, they're going to start underperforming to their standard. Like if they are technically playing on a team. The whole reason that people play better on the stage and all this stuff is because they're transforming into team play compared to solo queue aspect. Like all of these players all around, I think that there's again. As much as people don't want to like acknowledge it, there was a very large gap in talent inside of the Academy scene. I mean, I think there was a few players. I mean, Ike is.
Well, I think the gap only exists like that because you have players like Keith and Darshan who have been playing for years in there. Like you wouldn't notice this big gap if you didn't have veterans like that on the team.
If you don't have veterans inside of a team, you're not going to develop talent. That's just a fact. You have to have. You can't develop.
But then they dominate the Academy scene then.
Well, I'm just saying, if you get rid of them, you literally have no veteran presence, and they can't develop it. Like, the reason people keep all these good players, I mean, pretty, old players inside of the AAA and all this stuff, is because if you don't have that veteran leadership on all these things, if you don't have developed veteran leadership inside of this stuff, they'll never actually learn what it's like to kind of play inside of what I would say is the team environment of an LCS team, because they have no one who's ever experienced it. If you have a bunch of rookies doing this, and they're trying to make their own version of what's it called, I think, honestly, I don't see a way it could work. I think at least one veteran is a good idea to be able to develop talent. Because
but now when you have, Dignitas, where they had, literally a whole LCS team on there. Remember, earlier on they had, basically a whole LCS team? That's okay, that's not what Academy's for. They didn't pick up any new people at all.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to say is I do have a problem with a few things on the LCS scene. I think there is a very large gap in development systems, and I think it all comes down to coaching more so than anything. I don't think it's players' faults. And maybe, honestly, I will acknowledge there's a possibility that if they had a better coach, they'd do better in the LCS scene. I just think that it's a very large... There's not a big gap in what I see as the drafting phases between the Academy scenes for the most part, so I don't think it's 100% the coaching staff. And plus, they scrim the Academy... They're scrimming the regular season team. These players are having a use still. They scrim the proven...
Another PVR, too. Another PVR, which was...
I don't care what LCS said. I don't care about that LS thing that he said.
Cloud9 tries out players that they bring up.
Yeah,
too.
they develop talent. Well.
Yeah, Zazel, Kumo, who else was
again,
contracts.
All players, they all looked incredibly good in the LCS. They were the best Academy roster by far. All of them were the best at their position, and that's why they got developed. That's why they got brought up. I mean, it's not really fair to bring up one of the more historically good Academy rosters and compare them to what I would say is a underperforming mid laner. I don't think you just bring somebody up because you want them, because again, that's just a
it wasn't just LS that said it too. Like Yamato Cannon was told by players that he personally knows that they have bad environments.
Yeah, maybe the academy players said it. Maybe the academy players said they don't want to scrim us because they don't want to lose our spots. And what if that's not true?
I'm saying what they're saying isn't true. I think people are just deflecting it because they just don't want to believe that.
I just saying there's not enough actual proof to see whether or not I'm going to believe it for a fact. I'm just saying if I don't see any.
There's fuel, there's fire, something like that.
I'm just saying if there's not actual definitive proof that this is all happening.
We never got definitive proof because no one's gonna ever come out and say it though.
They said it to LS. They would say it to anybody.
But you don't know he didn't say the org name player because
it doesn't matter if they said it. Why would he come out and say it and bring it to light to anybody? Like if he's the bad person.
Out to light because obviously he was told probably to not mention their names, but
if he's the one saying.
You understand what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying.
He doesn't want to scrutinize. You don't want to have the people that told.
I see no worth in if you don't want this to be known, even saying it. It doesn't. It's not like a therapy session. It's not all this stuff.
It's something that needs to get brought up though. If they're environments.
Tell me. These are inferences, and without a doubt, inferences cannot be taken as facts. They are opinionated kind of pieces of. I think this is true, but I don't know. I'm not going to take this for a fact unless he literally has a video of the player saying, you know what, I don't want to scrim because I don't want to lose my spot. And it's not going to happen because what he got was probably a coach or an academy scene player saying what he thinks is the definitive proof of why they didn't scrim.
But how do we know multiple people didn't tell him this? He could be.
What if all the academy scenes players said it because they just said, you know what, I think this is the reason. That doesn't, just because 3 people said it doesn't make it true.
But this is what I'm saying is that if other people other than LS come out and say it, then that's something too. Because now are all of these other people lying too?
They're not lying. They're just making proofs. And if one person says it and they tell it to another person, they agree. All these people will start saying it. Just because it's a.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if other people in the scene.
That's literally what I'm saying. The reason that they started saying this is because one person in the scene started saying it. They told somebody else, and they're like, you know what? That makes kind of sense.
Oh, sorry, bad wording. What if people who work within a team get told this stuff by said team member and then...
Wait. Tell me. Do you think
let's just say... Who's on C9 Academy right now? Fucking hell.
I get what you're saying. You don't need to give me an example.
Let's say Palafox tells the new coach...
I'm not misunderstanding you, I promise.
Let's say Palafox tells Rainover that... what's the mid laner's name? Niski doesn't want to scrim me because he'll potentially lose his, he doesn't want to make me better, that whole thing. Now, if Rainover says something different than what Ellis is saying, that doesn't mean what Rainover says isn't true now, because I'm saying that...
These are hypotheticals. Again, you can't put facts on them. Like, literally, if Palafox says it, how do we know that's even true?
I know, but if this is a problem that even a lot of people have talked about... Like,
literally, the only thing you have to do...
environment in the LCS is bad. That's what
all you have to do is say you have to scrim these people, and then this problem wouldn't exist anymore.
No.
Then they get kicked off the team. There's literally no reason.
I
don't care. You literally have. If they don't listen to the coach, they should not be on the team. That is a fact. I don't agree with this concept of, oh, what if they just don't want to, and then you just kind of go along with that and accept that. What is you?
We wouldn't be bringing this up then if this was a thing.
No, you're bringing this up because people are trying to make inferences as to why this isn't happening. The reason this isn't happening is because coaches aren't enforcing it, and maybe they think maybe we don't get enough practice with them, or all these things that are possibilities, but we're trying to lean towards one that kind of villainizes one kind of side without actually having proof as to it. And when it kind of gets responded and everybody starts repeating it, it starts to get believed as a truth, and all you're doing is spreading information that's not actually a fact. If you continually to repeat this without actual proof, all you're doing is using like kind of thought process and kind of hypotheses instead of actually having factual information. This should be something, if I agree it's a possibility, it's a very high possibility that they're actually not screaming a lot of the lower teams because they don't want to lose their spots, but I don't know.
That said constantly
enforce
environment's bad. Even with the LCS teams, not even just Academy, like just the LCS teams having bad scrim environments, bad practice. I mean,
all you have to do is that is on the coaches. There's nothing we can do about that. We can hype.
That's something that NA needs to fix if you want to get better moves.
How do you fix it though? Like what is your
problem?
You can fix it easily. Just literally force them to practice, and if they say no, dock their pay or kick them off the.
But I mean, how can you tell it? That's the problem too. Like, let's say they play scrims and basically they just all run it down. And they say FFF 15. Let's just play another set. Now, what if you consistently do that, and you can't really tell if they're actually running it down in all these scrims? Like, there's no way to really tell it. That's the issue. You know?
I mean, you can hypothesize, but if you do bad in scrims, you should lose your spot, and that's just a fact. If you lose to the academy scene player consistently, you should lose your spot. If they're
replacing Piglet when Piglet was underperforming.
That never happened. When who replaced him?
When they had a young Ben replace Piglet for a little bit, for like that week or so.
My big problem was the fact that if we look at the games, if anybody actually looks, if they use non-context and actually look at just the highlight plays where he gets caught out, that's where they bring their inferences in, because they can't actually. People, honestly, if you introduce a video of somebody playing at like a silver to gold or maybe even a platinum level, they can't tell the difference between that and a challenger level because they can't identify the little single differences each player makes, and that's why they can't.
Point A to point B.
Well, it's just they can't tell what they're doing differently, and that's why a lot of these players make inferences without actually knowing. They use non-contextual like kind of pieces and try and say this is why this is happening, and that's why I hate it. Like, all these people have voices, and it's good to have a voice, but like, don't speak like there is a correlation between talent, skill level, and knowledge. You can't know as much as somebody who plays the game more often than you, and it's just a fact. Like, all these players are just literally, like, I don't know. I hate the people on, like, I'm specifically talking about people on Reddit. Like, I hate those people.
Reddit are fucking dirtbags.
What? It's literally, like, I actually went onto Reddit one time, and they were talking about Frostgaren and Dracos in the what's it called? And yes, I agree, they missed a lot of calls inside of the G2 and Damwon series. 100% understandable. But now they kind of rag on them and say, wow, they're terrible at everything. And I was like, Frostgaren is like...
I could easily debunk them. First of all, you are on a live broadcast. There's so many things there. Like, if these people don't know anything, like, if you're on a live broadcast, there's so much stuff you're dealing with, especially now.
I do want to point out, they should not have missed that.
You can't capture everything, though. Like, people make mistakes. We would do it too. So I'm not going to scrutinize.
I will. It is their job. I'm not trying to absolve them of what they did. They did something poorly. They should get acknowledged. But I mean, it kind of reflects into everything. And they're like, wow, these are the worst casters ever. When in reality, Frostgaren is 100% one of the most knowledgeable casters out there. I mean, without a doubt, I think she's in the top three. Top three. Her, a few other players. I mean,
I missed it.
Not even Drake. Dracos is not up there. Dracos is not in the top three. I think it's her, LS, and
just imagine if like Frostgaren and Frostgaren and Azale did cast together with like who would I say, like Dracos. That'd be so cool though.
I think all around it's just it's kind of that's what I'm going to. It's kind of like when things are reiterated on side of online, and it's like these opinions are like, wow, this could be a possibility, and they keep repeating it. It kind of comes out as something, especially if there's a voice behind it, like somebody in the academy scene feeling like they're kind of being victimized and all this stuff. They victimize themselves and put out they're not trying to scrim us because of all this stuff. It kind of gets repeated. And again, it's a possibility that they're not scrimming because of all these things, but is it a fact? Are these players coming out and saying, you know what? I don't think any of the players specifically are doing it besides the academy scenes. And if it is the regular players saying, I don't want to scrim because I'm going to lose my spot and I'm just not going to scrim him because I don't want to make him better, you kick him off. Because honestly, all he's doing is stifling the development of the team. Like, even if he's playing moderately well, this is in the long run a bad call. And there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you could say to really convince me otherwise. If you're not in control of the team, you shouldn't be a coach if you can't take control of it.
League of Legends, like a subreddit, like that place is just full of morons. Like, I hate that place.
It's just
and it only gets so much traction because like the professionals, people that are in the scene, give it attention. It would not get this much attention if you didn't bring this much, if you didn't mention it so much. Like, everyone knows, people even in the comment threads know they're stupid, but yet they continue stifling their stupid, retarded opinions about why you don't blind pick Rakan in the third rotation. It's like, are you stupid? Do you know how drafts work?
I mean, I think realistically, you don't blind pick Rakan in the third rotation in the second rotation, like after the second ban phase, because they can pick Leona and you're worthless. Like, it is one big problem with that. I think there's major counter picks, but at the same time, if your whole identity is like Leona can't react to this because Leona is able to lane against him well, but is not able to react as fast as him in terms of just engage as quickly. Like, that is a big thing. You're not speaking.
Well, so like when half of their issues is just basically people literally just going over the same points, like saying analysts don't do their prep work. It's like, come on, get the fuck out of here. Like that's
Yeah,
stupid.
it is
Like
stupid.
bronze 5 analysts trying to give their opinions. Like that's why I don't really take any opinions from Reddit. Reddit's the same place where like last year, I put up the thumbnail with the new TSM team at the time, which was Dardoch and Kabe, and they're like, "Oh, you stole this from TSM subreddit." What do you mean? I don't mean. I'm not even a part of TSM subreddit. What do you mean?
The big thing about it is I do want to identify they have some validation because you probably took it off the images tab. You didn't really specifically steal it. You have to do you do have to like kind of study that a little more.
Like I did give credit. I said credit. I think I gave credit in the description. I think it was like credit goes to it was like LOL esports flicker or something like that because someone put up a meme. I was like, people on Reddit are stupid. That's why I told people don't pay attention to Reddit. Reddit is trash. Also, you have to build up our Reddit, which you didn't even do. So you know.
I could put okay. So a big thing about it, actually, I think what we should actually acknowledge it towards the end of this video is one thing I want to do is first of all, I did make a Reddit. I built up all the karma because I know he can't get positive comments, so I had to get all the karma. So I made a subreddit. I developed an entire kind of a profile around it, and I think a big thing about it is what do I do? What do you guys want to do with it? You can leave a link to it in the description if you want. And honestly, what we could do is first of all we could put reaction to this video each time a new video gets put out. You could put a link in there and say thoughts and opinions or something like that, and get everybody's opinions on it. That is one possibility. I could do that for you. I have no problems with that.
I think I want to look at some of these Reddit comments. Though the TSM Bjergsen announcement has God 3,900 comments. Holy crap! Oh my god. Let's see. No, no, no. No one's really saying anything bad, about Bjergsen so far. Well, that's a lot of comments. So, I'm hoping Evolve gets a shot. I'm hoping, please, we give the Academy players a shot. That's what one guy said.
I'll never agree with that.
I think they're going to promote Sword from their junior team.
I want to know. I actually, again, it's just like it seems like, you know what? Maybe you can develop. Maybe he has raw potential. Maybe I'm misunderstanding that because he looked really. I can't even remember what game I watched, man. He was just getting.
Well, one person agrees with you. He said before I would say Evolve needs another split in Academy, but now I realize that the only way for him to get better is to play in LCS. Hopefully, he finally gets the chance. They're gonna promote Evolved into TSM and put Sword in Academy.
I want to know. I mean, honestly, do they think that there's no challenges for him and that's why they can't develop? Because, again, the team environment aspect of it, I think one big thing, again, if you put somebody in at the beginning of the year, give them a split, you're not going to get somebody at the second split to be able to make a team good because, again, they have to develop, they have to gel with the team. It really doesn't work out often if you bring in a mid laner at the second half of the split because usually when it comes down to that, they can't fit with the team fast enough or so as the rest of the teams have gelled with their mid laners. There's a possibility it still works, and if you give him a chance and he doesn't work out, who cares?
Like I wanted to pivot out this to something else because it did involve Bjergsen. So even if they do choose Evolve, let's just say they choose Evolve, I would personally say that's a lot of pressure. Even if he does get chosen or a random person gets chose, that's a lot of pressure on the said player to perform, to match up to Bjergsen's standards. And I want to say, like, don't compare the guy to Bjergsen at all for a very long time because it's most likely. I'll put 100% of confidence into this because ultimately I'm a god and I predict everything correctly. He's not going to achieve what Bjergsen achieved. It's most people don't do that. There's a reason why Doublelift, Bjergsen, Sneaky, Xmithy, High, Meteos, players like that are called GOATs because there's not a lot of people that can achieve stuff like that. So that's what I would say. Don't harp on the guy, whoever they pick, whether it be Evolved or a new import, because he's not going to achieve what Bjergsen's achieved in his career. It's just not going to happen. Like, it's just not going to happen. No matter what you tell me, it's not going to happen. But what I want to also say is Bjergsen, basically, as you guys don't know, Bjergsen literally, I would say, if you look at it years to come, Bjergsen did transform the LCS. Bjergsen, just like Doublelift, had a big impact in the LCS. Bjergsen showed the LCS how to play mid lane in a different way because before that, I mean, it was still pretty bad. Even if you go back and look at those past games, it was really bad. Like Bjergsen literally shaped how NA played the mid lane, and then after that, people were like, okay, now I get to play around Bjergsen. Now I want to play a different style to counteract it, kind of like how Uzi did for ADC. Like Uzi made people want to play ADC differently about how you CS, how you attack your opponent, how you maneuver on the map. So those are things that I want to give credit to Bjergsen for, because it's not every day you see a player come into the league and completely change how people even think about it. So much so to the point where he's one of the winningest players in the LCS. I think he's like the third winningest player, right, out of Xmithy and Double List, right?
I mean, if we just base it off these things, I think MVPs and all that stuff also have to come into it. He's most likely the most successful LCS player of all time.
Yeah, most storied. Because outside of that, that's what I want to give props to Bjergsen for. You know, if people call him the GOAT over Double Lift, I'm not gonna argue.
I don't think it's arguable that Bjergsen is the NA GOAT as it stands. I don't think anybody can argue that point.
The only black hole in his career is the World's Performance thing. He didn't have the international success that he ever wanted to.
Yeah, but who had that in the LCS? Tell me.
The only person that really had success was like Sneaky. That's the only person that really had it. That's like the only. That's really the only NA player that really had it, because he made quarterfinals, semifinals. You know, but other than that, this is big shoes to fill for TSM. I would say look through your long category of players you could choose from. I would say to all the TSM fans, because I know we have TSM fans that watch the video, don't harp on the new guy if he starts playing badly in the first few games.
I expect an import.
I expect a world-class player.
I'm just saying, I expect an import to come in. That's all I expect at this point in time. I don't expect...
Maybe they do it the way they did for a Bjergsen, get somebody out of the EU master scene.
I mean, he was inside of the scene, was he not?
Yeah, he was. So, I mean, they might pick a random out of the EU master scene. They might pick somebody we see in the LEC.
Okay, Nemesis.
Okay, Nemesis would probably blow his brains out before he would ever come to the LCS. Oh my god. Nemesis on TSM? You know how toxic they would be? Holy crap.
TSMesis. I like that. That's a good... That sounds good, too.
So the last thing I want to talk about is... Did you see the clips where Double Lift was talking about he was also going to potentially retire too, but he didn't want to retire on a note like that? Do you think he only said that because Bjergsen was retiring, or do you think he only had that reaction because of Bjergsen?
I mean, I think I have a lot of ideas as to what he would be doing it for, honestly. He could be doing it to look good, to say, like, oh man, I love Bjergsen so much, and trying to be in good graces. It's a good PR move. There's a lot of possibilities. Maybe he's doing it because he doesn't think he can make this team work without Bjergsen. He really only came over to this team because of Bjergsen. Let's point that out. When he would have stayed on Team Liquid if not for that. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities as to what this team could possibly be doing. But, honestly, I don't really know if it matters too much what he does. I think that it all ultimately comes down to the fact that I do think there's going to be either a replacement for him, or there's a shift in the meta back out of utility ADCs, and it becomes kind of a lot more useful. Because he's really been worthless on these utility ADC carrot picks. Like, I don't know.
He says he's the best ADC, but, you know.
He can say whatever he wants. He was the best ADC for, like, two seasons. Maybe.
Well, I mean, he said he's the best ADC, but yeah, he admitted that FBI was better. All right.
I mean, he was not good. He was not the best in season 1. Let's just skip this.
The recent season.
Well, let's talk about season. Let's skip the season 5. He wasn't the best. Season 6, he wasn't the best. Season 7, he was the best in 8. And season 9, I think it's possibility that it was between. You know, no, I would say seasons
8, 9, and 5.
He was definitely not the best in season 5. He wasn't even the second best. Piglet was by far the best ADC in season 5. It wasn't even deniable back then. But now people look back on it, they're like, you know, maybe it wasn't. It's like literally one of the best. He was literally one of the best players in the league, and everybody started arguing with it. Like now people start arguing. Was he really that good though? It's like they just kind of look back on stats, and even stats wise, I don't even know if you can disagree with it.
So now Double Lift is so. I think the newest iteration of TSM is gonna be Double Lift focused. They'll probably just play around bot lane. Like, I don't really know, because you got to factor in. I think they're gonna try and revamp their roster. I think that it's a good time of any to revamp your roster. But that, like, the issue here with that goes into, like, Bjergsen's the head coach, so whatever values and morals and coaching infrastructure that TSM implements is still gonna be the TSM old style, unless Bjergsen comes in with a completely new, fresh mindset to the head coaching role. But that essentially means that Parth is going to be the general manager again, because before Parth was the general manager and the head coach, which was crazy. TSM is fucking hilarious sometimes. But what was the last thing we could talk about? Oh, we'll do the thoughts and opinions about G2 versus Damwon in another video. But yeah, G2 got blown out. But G2 are gonna have their own issues too moving forward. I still have mad respect for all the players, but I don't really know what you do. Like, does Perks retire at this point based off what happened this year with his personal life and not winning Worlds? Does Caps go to another team? I don't see it because G2 has been so successful in the LEC. I don't think any of the players want to go to any other roster unless just one retires, personally, for me. If Perks ever did, like, just retire, I imagine they would just take the best ADC in the league and just offer him a buyout because, like, if you're in the LEC and G2's like, all right, Perks is retiring, we want you. I'm pretty sure you say yes. If you're upset or one of the other better ADCs in the league, you say yes. That's it. I don't think there's much debate. Like, are you really going to say no to being on G2? I think you'd actually have to be a moron for that.
Who are you talking about?
What happened?
What player are you trying to bring over? Upset?
The better ADCs in the league. So maybe Hansama, Upset, saying possibilities are open.
I think Kabe would work perfectly with that team.
Kabe? I don't know about that one.
I think Kabe is perfect.
I think you want hard carry potential. And
you don't want hard carry potential. I mean, you want somebody stability-wise. Kabe's one of the best. And I think
Upset does that better.
He doesn't.
Or Hansama does that.
I don't think so. I think that stability-wise and all these things in low econ, I think Kabe's the best out of those three.
Kabe recently got 9th place, though.
I don't care about his. I don't care about his rankings. And you can't play ADC on a bad team. It's impossible. You literally can't do it. It's like it's not the meta for it anymore. If you have a bad team, you're gonna suck.
What am I saying? Carzzy. You can get Carzzy if Perks retires.
No. Carzzy was not one of the better players.
You can get Carzzy.
No.
You can get Crown Shot. If you give Crown Shot a better team,
I honestly have loved Crown Shot for a while. I think that he actually is inconsistent, but when he pops off, it's just ridiculous. It's like Crown.
I love G2, but like the Perks and Caps can't be switching like this consistently. Something's gonna have to give. Like, everyone knows it at this point. Something is gonna have to give. Either Caps goes to another team, which would make that team probably most likely win the split and be one of the best teams in the league. Perks goes back to mid, and they get a new ADC. Or Perks retires, and you get a new AD carry.
I think regardless of the situation, roster moves would involve a new ADC out of every situation. I think that is the big situational thing right here. I mean, all around, I expect something to happen. I don't think this G2 roster really was outmatched. I think that's the big situation, like the big identifier.
Well, you know me. Like, even when Perks said they were better than last year, I didn't believe that. Like, anybody with half a brain knows they were not better than last year's G2. Like, it's a proven literally today they're not better than last year's G2. Like, it's already proven. Like,
proven.
It's literally already proven though. Like, they literally got higher placings last year and played way better last year. Like, literally last year in their gameplay they played a lot better. This year they just didn't play that good. But overall, I would say that, I would say, if you're asking my own personal opinion, I would say just grab Upset. But
I think Upset's a good solid choice. I'll always choose Kabe over him in specifically in this team specifically. This team specific, Upset is the better ADC. I think Kabe works better for this environment of a team. Honestly, if you're gonna bring an Upset, you're gonna have to shift Wonder into more low econ top laners, which he's not bad at weak side. I just don't think he's bad enough to need to play weak side with him.
Tomorrow is Suning's big day. If Suning makes the finals, SOFM is getting talked to by so many different teams. Oh my god.
I've literally been like 6 straight years of me being like, man, SOFM is the hottest.
You finally get your shot.
I've been talking about SFM for like 6 straight years. I've been like, he's the hottest man on the planet. And like,
how do you feel now?
I feel validated.
Validated after 6 years? You've been saying this since 2014?
Yeah, well, it's 2015, 2016.
You've been saying this for essentially 6 years.
It's been 5 or 6, yeah. I'm just saying.
What?
When Rek'Sai was meta, he was the single best jungler in Season 5 in the world.
You know what? I was looking at some more of like Flandre's gameplay. Flandre is one of the better top laners never to go to Worlds though, which is
I agree. I think he's one of the most talented players to not make it to Worlds, and it breaks my heart because I thought he had so much.
What's that other Chinese ADC? SMLZ? That's his name?
SMLZ,
So,
he was good, not this year, but he was good before. I agree.
he's he's like the S1E10 for ADCs in China. Like he's been good for so long that it's like he needs a team. Give him a team like Suning had, and he'll definitely most likely go to Worlds at some point. But I don't see it. I see him just retiring at a certain point. But that's just me. Anything else you want to say about Bjergsen and his retirement? I think that even though he didn't do well internationally like he wanted to, I think he can still retire with his head held up high. That's me. I think he'll still be happy with what he achieved overall. He set out to not go to school because he was getting bullied. He got a great career out of it. He's with the org that loves him. He still has a job. He has a streaming career. He had a great career in the LCS. He lives in LA. I mean, maybe international success doesn't mean that much at that point, you know, but what would you say, actually?
What I say about what specifically?
Like Bjergsen to end off the video.
You know what, Bjergsen, I think that he's one of the historically, not even one of, he's the most historically gifted player NA's ever seen. I think that if we're going to see a situation where he actually is replaced, it's going to be by somebody I think is going to be worse than him. I think he transformed the way the NA scene actually approached imports and all that stuff. They started looking more towards all these things. Like, really, he kind of started the floodgates of, like, imports getting into the and realizing that the talent in the mid laner like pool of NA was not that great. It really did, and on top of the fact he brought in a lot of weird picks in the NA. Like I think that like when he actually made Xerath actually work 100%, we saw a lot more people try and make that actually a thing. He brought in Zillions, so we saw a few other people attempt it, just never to his full potential. Like we saw a lot of these players get accustomed to having to ban out a specific elite player because no other team really actually brought that to the table. You had to ban out, like we had Katarina with like Scar and all that stuff, but for the most part we didn't have a Syndra and all this stuff or LeBlanc that we had to start banning out with the Bjergsen. He really changed the environment of the LCS scene. It's going to be really
issues that someone in Reddit tackled was that now with Bjergsen off the team, now you can't just hard focus certain bans on Bjergsen now. That was the thing that Bjergsen brought over too. Was in the draft phase, he was just such a dominating force that you literally had to ban on certain picks against him. Otherwise, you were just gonna lose outright, which is so crazy, man. Oof, man.
It's just the reality. Bjergsen is one of the most polarizing players in the NALCS scene. We could bring up all his international success and all that stuff, but he was realistically the best player that NA's ever really had. I mean, no one's ever even really got to his level. Like we've had players that have reached high peaks. Like if we bring up like what's his name, the jungler. We have Dardoch. We have Piglet. We have the highs of what's a stick say. We have all these players that actually really kind of peaked really quickly. That had really massively good performances, but they really never were able to consistently play at the level that Bjergsen did. Bjergsen was always elite. He was always one of the best players, and it's really a tragedy that we're not going to be able to see him anymore because it's been really fun.
Because you don't see a lot of players like him play as good and then still consistently be called one of the best players in the league. Like I can't bring up that example because that's two different leagues. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we had a pretty good episode. So see you guys later. Like, comment, subscribe. Most of all, enjoy. Rift Insight will be on Monday. I'll be having my highlights reactions of Suning versus Top Esports because I won't be able to watch the games because obviously they come on way too late. I hate when Worlds is in China. The games are too late in the night. But yeah, see you guys on Monday. And that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoy your next mid laner for TSM. TSM fans, you should look at this as a new chapter. It's finally time to do what you guys said, try out some new players. So hopefully they make the right decisions, which obviously is not going to be the case. We're going to be talking about why TSM failed at the end of 2021. I'll place $50 freaking on that. But that's it. See you guys later. Goodbye.
Hi guys, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more stuff.
Yeah, thank you.